Hi, my name is Mark McKelsey, and I lead the people and the projects at Gmdc Retail Tomorrow that bring our members insights and consumer trends that guide companies through opportunities for both growth now and in the future. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll be walking you through some key insights that I've been taking and tracking inside stores over the past few months, along with many of our partners, including Nielsen, during the pandemic and even through as we approach a second wave. I'll also discuss the implications what it means for you, your stores, and in the world of non-food brands. I'm calling these segments Keeping It Real. So let me just go ahead and pull up my presentation here. So I'll start by saying that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that there's a fundamental recalibration of retail taking place that is being driven purely by what's happening in the minds of shoppers during all phases of the pandemic here in North America. You know, a humorous example of what's happening is with online shirt sales, which are skyrocketing, while pant sales continue to decline as people realize that what they wear on Zoom only matters really above the table. This new reality is truly a signal of how consumers are torn between two different worlds. So take, for instance, Google announced last week that their entire workforce will be permitted to work from home, not only for the remainder of 2020, but most likely well into 2021 as well. Shoppers' values have completely changed as a result of the pandemic and forced the retail industry and its brands to put the consumer at the core of its strategy more than ever before. So let's start by saying that the new Homebody Economy continues to be gaslighting store sales. Nielsen, a strategic partner of Gmdc, has labeled the new normal as the Homebody Economy for many obvious reasons. The implications of states reopening and taking effect for business, and most recently starting to shut down again and going from groups of 10 to 50 to 175, and even here in Colorado, we're down to a threat of even going back down to 50 again. It is obvious that people are becoming more aware of which companies have survived and which ones continue to be paralyzed. So if you thought tailgating was a thing over the past few decades, you should start thinking about home gating. And that ties nicely into what we've labeled as the Homebody Economy along with Nielsen. During the 8-week shutdown, what retailers deemed as essential have realized a $38 billion increased sales compared to the same time frame last year in 2019. 70% of that is incremental growth due to the coronavirus-focused shoppers, and 30% of those were loaded into pantries of homes across North America alone. Many of these trends continue to happen today, and we start to see the fluctuation spike up and down to some degrees almost as much as we see in March. The grocery industry lately has been reminiscent of what I call the early 1990s, where shoppers enjoyed a novel idea that the supermarket could provide them with everything they needed long before the rise of the specialty store phenomenon. And with malls in trouble as well, consumers are really focused and fine-tune their shopping trips so that they can stay at home, just go to work, and keep their life basically much more basic than what it has before. The trend of going back to your favorite grocery store for everything is indeed sustainable long after this original shock and the second shock of the virus is over. A 13% plus gain is predicted to last until the end of the year in grocery stores, along with a steady increase of $2.2 billion in consumption. But consumers also like to blend their trip between in-store and curbside, as grocery stores have seen a 94% increase in essential food and non-food ordering with BOPIS technology. Other categories, such as frozen foods, are forecasted to remain at 21% through the end of the year, which is an increase for in-store purchases throughout 2020, while every weekend until Christmas is expected to feel like Memorial Day weekend when it comes to beer and wine sales. Brick and mortar continues to welcome new and loyal shoppers to the store, and the consumer spending pie continues to grow across all areas. At one point in time, and not many years ago, the demise of the center store was even being discussed inside our association as the non-food industry continued to really slow, and many really questioned whether it would become irrelevant in 20, 30, 40 years due to the Amazon factor. Well, today, center store enjoys a 70% growth factor compared to last year because shoppers have an in-the-moment attitude towards shopping, and physical product adjacency is more popular than ever. And as you can see from the stats on the slide, center stores outpacing growth even in the perimeter, according to Nielsen's in-store data. At the same time, online is still king for top-up occasions, which are categories seen as fulfilling shoppers' indulgence, which are all up 67% versus last year. So that brings us to what brands matter most in a post-COVID world. Due to pricing and cost-saving concerns, private label really is coming out of this crisis as a clear winner. Private label non-food brands have seen a 44% increase that looks to be a solid trend tied to economic factors. Brands are up 27%, but that performance is focused on the brands that have a halo effect and were in stock when consumers were drawn back to the stores to buy essentials, many of whom you see here on this slide and are also members of Gmdc. It's as if people are saying, hey, thanks to those manufacturers who delivered on the promise to keep people safe and were quote unquote there for us. In fact, 80% of all consumers claim they have shifted from buying smaller and lesser known brands and now rely on what they consider as staple brands across all categories, and not just cleaning products. People generally are looking for comfort and familiarity during uncertain times. In fact, the psychological state of consumers across North America is very similar and does not seem to vary between coasts, as we've seen across many regions. We see more and more sameness in people's mindset across state by state. To me, that says that the raw human instinct has taken over because the mindset is purely about safety and health. Globally, shopping habits also share a few differences across the board as well. So that brings us to self-care. We all know that self-care is no longer a trend, but it's a new essential. We've been saying that for years at Gmdc Retail Tomorrow. In fact, we hosted our first self-care summit event last year, and we'll be doing it again this fall. But it's not just a mindset anymore, it's permeating through all the lifestyle that consumers want and desire to have. With the rise of telehealth presuming to show itself as a major part of consumers' lives long after the pandemic is over, grocery stores especially and many other outlets continue to be seen as an epicenter of proactive health solutions outside of hospitals and the walls of the doctor's office. One of Gmdc's partners and experts in the consumer healthcare space, Jane Saracen-Kahn, says, and I quote, "In the eyes of consumers, and especially post-COVID-19 consumers, healthcare is found virtually everywhere, at the grocery store, faith-based institutions, the pharmacy, the school, the barbershop, the beauty salon, the spa, in medical cannabis storefronts, in parks, in gardens, through e-commerce sites, and especially at home," which ties in nicely with our Homebody Economy that we've been talking about. Many retailers who enabled and altered their operations by introducing dedicated shopping hours for at-risk groups, such as the elderly or healthcare workers who are on the front lines, have quickly been known as what we call the self-care saviors of their communities during the pandemic. And that has a much longer lasting effect long after the pandemic is over. Couple that with swiftly rolled out safety measures inside the stores, along with extended services and new consultation platforms for health at home measures, many retailers really have built deep-rooted trust with local communities that will survive for many years to come. Weiss Markets and Ahold Delhaize both have set up new healthy living sections and meet our dietitian areas on their websites, which are great examples of what they're doing to really serve the local community and really help with the anxiety and the fear that people are feeling. So, with anxiety as the number one concern with consumers today, especially concerning income and health and the future in general, self-care will continue to expand deeper into the minds of people everywhere. Stores will begin seeing growth opportunities to speak and connect into the lives of their customers in the following ways. One would be social self-care, which I'm defining as how to help someone perform their role effectively in creating a support network of friends and family, while also concerned about keeping proper distance and taking the right precautions. This is a great opportunity for retail to start leveraging. Next would be occupational self-care, which is in helping people enjoy one's endeavors both at work and within society in a new self-esteem and self-worth and perception of what actually good health means. Next would be environmental self-care. And this is not just only related to taking care of the earth, but really has a new heightened awareness with consumers about where germs reside, how long viruses last, and what products are best to use on specific surfaces. Lastly, and probably the one we talk about less, is really just spiritual self-care. People are now seeking new values as they repurpose themselves and as they're impacted by the ongoing pandemic. Loss of lives and livelihoods all really kind of eat into our psyche and create traumatic experiences for us. So, some next practices as your company settles into a new normal. There's a few things I'd like to cover on this, and I'll be really brief. One, plan for new demand. Think about how to create more slack in the line in your supply chain and look deeper into the potential hiccups throughout the entire chain. Keep track of what the next thing will be that can risk mitigate health concerns or being preventive solutions as the pandemic timeline spreads. Next, optimize your pricing and promotional strategy. Delight your consumers with specials that captures loyalty. They're already going to come into your store, but continue to delight them even more and deepen that loyalty, especially when new habit loops are broken and families are still anxious about their consumers. Next would be protect cash flow, as you'll need it for new investments. And according to the Nielsen slide here, we're continuing to see how local shoppers continue to look for innovation. Even though they are very loyal to the big brands, they will eventually start to move back into some of the smaller and niche companies. So do protect that cash flow. Understand that as you continue to get your supply chain back on top, you need to really invest in what matters and divest in the things that really your consumers aren't willing to pay for anymore. Next, increase your tech presence with digital online experience. So to me, this is an obvious next practice. Consumers are doing more shopping in general, both in the store and online. And if you're not helping your consumers get what they want, where they want, you're obviously not focused on growth. Lastly, keep investing in innovation. And this is very appropriate for the series, the Retail to More series that you've signed up for. In fact, the best brands and stores know that economic downturns are key opportunities and help them get ahead and stay in front. That said, innovation can be expensive and tricky to get right, so be careful where you invest and ensure that you're committed. 30,000 new consumer product launches are in the market every year and 95% of them fail. But when they win, they have the potential of being highly profitable and a game changer of what success actually looks like. So, that being said, thank you for being part of this, for being part of the Keeping It Real with Non-Food segment.